every election is unique, but what has been very unique about this one is this past 37 days have unfolded under the shadow of U.S. President Donald Trump.
If they didn't have us, and if we didn't spend that money, as Trudeau told me, they would cease to exist.
On more than one occasion, U.S. tariffs forced Liberal leader Mark Carney off the campaign trail. He would then put on his prime minister hat and respond as the leader of the country. Trump's 51st state threats also led Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre to rebrand his campaign. "We lost, axe the tax," went to Canada first as the new slogan. For more on how Trump and the trade war have shaped this campaign and potentially votes, we're going to welcome back our election panel, political strategist Amanda Alvaro, former Deputy Conservative leader Lisa Raitt, and former NDP MP Craig Scott. And we were pointing out, it's great to have you all in person. I have seen you in various incarnations digitally, but to have you all here has a really neat feel. So thanks for coming in this morning. Nice. Before this campaign even began, analysts said, the question for a lot of Canadians are going to be who can best protect us against these threats of 51st state and tariffs. How has Trump's role impacted this campaign? I know the Liberals really want to make this the ballot box question. And there's two for Canadians, cost of living and Donald Trump. So Amanda, I'll start with you. How has this shaped, first of all, Carney's campaign and then potentially voters?
Well, and it isn't just that they want to make this the issue. This is the issue, right? This is the thing that people are at home worried about, and rightfully so. There's a lot at stake in this election. How we're going to respond to Trump, how we're going to take him on, who's going to be best positioned to stand up to him, this impending trade war, and what that does to cost of living, what that does to affordability. And writ large, that message has been consistent for the Liberals. Since day one, their message has been that Carney is the one who is best positioned to take on that role, to lead Canada through that. And so when you poll Canadians, you look at who stands for what, there's been a bit of a shift because the Conservatives haven't had the same through line. They started off with axe the tax, as you mentioned, and they kind of moved into this change and affordability message. But that is challenging for people because they've heard the Liberals talk about the same thing for 37 days, right? And so that message has really stuck. And I think when that issue maintains itself as the top issue facing Canadians, this is where we're seeing the vote head.
I would think that the Conservatives would argue that cost and affordability have always been central to their campaign, even if the slogans have changed. Lisa, I'm curious about your reflections on this. How has Donald Trump changed things in this election? I mean, if we want to look at the polling, you look at Christmas and where the Conservatives were sitting, and you look to today, and it's a very different picture.
I think he invigorated the older part of our society. I think if you talk to somebody under 30, it's not a Donald Trump election for them. It's about housing affordability, and it's about cost of living and whether or not they're going to have an opportunity in life. And I think that's a really stark difference in terms of it. So when you see the 43 to 39%, that's what's being reflected. And the ballot box question is going to be what's important to you. But the key is, who's going to be driven to the ballot box, right? Is cost of living enough to get people to go out to the ballot box? Because certainly Donald Trump is. And my joke from the previous segment was, in terms of Mark Carney's French, he only has to be better than Donald Trump's French in order to be able to get some happiness in Quebec. So that's a good thing.
It's a low bar.
It's a low bar.
Both the Liberals and the NDP, Craig, have claimed that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's style of politics is similar to Trump's, and he's pushed back on that. But yet, then we're hearing about what'd you think of the size of my rally? So, how do you, Lisa? How do you respond to that? There seems to be this confusion for people saying you don't want to be compared to Trump. And in fact, when I interviewed Pierre Poilievre and asked him what his relationship was, he said he doesn't have one. But then we hear talk about rallies, which we know is echoes from south of the border. So how do you round that square?
I remember, Amanda, a time when Justin Trudeau was packing out hockey rinks and we were all talking about it, and then Donald Trump ruined the rally for everybody. I mean, what politician doesn't want to have a massive rally? Sure. You do, and your volunteers want it. They want to go out and they want to be amongst like-minded people. So I think it's an effective, I would say, characterization of Pierre Poilievre and anything he does. A plane at the end of a hangar, oh, that's Trumpy. When he says something, oh, that's Trumpy. And it's just continuously trying to attach it to him. And I just think it's mischief, and I think it's a narrative that's trying to be forced on him. He's not Donald Trump.
Craig, what are your thoughts?
No, he's not Donald Trump, but he's built a career and accelerated a career around very much an attack style of politics that has bordered with the slogan side into, a kind of politics that is oversimplified, name calling, that kind of thing. And so there's stylistic similarities, and then there are some major pickups in terms of the way in which diversity, equity, and inclusion is talked about. We can argue about pendulums having gone one way or the other.
Listen, no one has defined woke, which he keeps saying we're going to be a warrior state and not a woke state.
But the point is there's something there. People are responding to what I call a pendulum that has swung too far. But the way Poilievre has gone about it is quite Trumpy. Some of the discussion about what the Conservative Party, if they are elected, would do vis-a-vis universities is worrying, and the fact that they continue to say that after watching what's happening south of the border is definitely worrying. I think there are analogs and similarities that are legitimate. The idea of saying that he's somehow Trump in the sense of being almost pro-American, this kind of discourse is not helpful, not fair.
I agree. Yeah.
But the other similarities are real. And I also, I think it's been less tariffs than the 51st state sovereignty stuff that has galvanized people around Trump as an election factor. Don't forget that Trump linked tariffs to that issue. Economic coercion was going to be his method, right? Right? And so I think the average person is responding to that, and the tariff stuff has become a little bit lost in the noise, except for folks who are directly feeling it and seeing it over the horizon. I think the Conservatives have played it right, despite Corey Teneyck's coming back at them for their campaign.
The malpractice.
The malpractice accusations. I think sticking to a very, what got them there as argument, not as style, was the correct thing for them to do. And the fact that they're at, frankly, I don't think they're at only 38. I think they're at 39 or 40. I think they've run the campaign that couldn't be much better in terms of the result they would get.
39% is high.
43 was always just almost unattainable. And 39 to 40 is based on a consistent message, subtracting some of the more combative qualities of Pierre Poilievre that have been softened during the election.
But I think that style actually matters a lot. And one of the other big stories coming out of the election may not be which region helps to take whichever party wins this election, but actually what role women play in it. There is a huge gender divide in this election. We see the Liberals up 20 points with women, and especially women over 55. And I think what has really repelled them on the Conservative message has been the toxicity that Poilievre brought early on. So for like the last 2 years, as he's been campaigning for this election, he's used language that's been a big turnoff to women. And so they've moved their vote. So yes, it's issue-based, but it also has been style-based. What we may find coming out of this election is that women were the one who turned the dial.
Lisa, I saw you nodding to that. What do you want to say?
I did in a way, because the way I look at it is it's like a burning platform in terms of the vote. So for women, they can give their vote to the Liberals and maintain a status quo over the last 10 years, and they can think about what they feel vis-a-vis a candidate because they have the luxury of doing so. People under 35 are on a burning platform. They're really worried about housing. They want change, and they don't see it in the Liberal Party. So women that age, they're going to give their vote to the Conservatives in that case.
I would add one thing, which is that it's not as if the parties have not been substantive on issues that are not directly tied to Trump. I think the housing discussion has been real across all three parties. I cannot see Carney and the Liberals doing as well as they're doing without most people realizing what they've said on housing, for example. So,
which they've taken from the Conservatives, but nonetheless.
Well,
and you're welcome for the gas tax, everybody.
Parts of it, not the idea of a central agency building.
Well, no, we would never bring that up, trust me. No more Crown Corps.
No more Crown Corps.
Anyway, I want to thank the three of you for being here, and also that you agreed to come back tomorrow as we talk about results.
Well, we'll see how tonight goes.
Lisa, we can't have an empty chair here. We need you to come. Political strategist Amanda Alvaro, former Deputy Conservative leader Lisa Raitt, and former NDP MP Craig Scott. Great. If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.